Good evening and welcome back to Prime of Midlife. It's Thursday evening and this evening we are talking about local authority cost cutting and government cost cutting. And the reason we're talking about that is I had thought we were talking today at work, as we do, and our local authority has, over the last few years, asked for volunteers to clear paths when the snow occurs. And they have also, there was an article in the newspapers asking for someone, a council that had seemingly stopped using weed killer was now putting a shout out to local residents to help them clear the weeds because the weeds had grown like weeds, as they do. There's also, I know here, our local walkways, our local paths through parks, etc., and through the local countryside. Their upkeep has now been reduced by the local authorities so much that they've got volunteer groups and they put a call out every couple of weeks and say we're doing a path tidy up, and they clear it from litter, they pick up the weeds, they plant things, they edge off the paths and things like that. And it got me to thinking today, where did this come from? So I had a thought, and I could be wrong here, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. Years ago, probably about 20 years ago, 20 to 25 years ago, my parents were able to retire. Now, mum would have been 56, dad would have been 60, they had a works pension, they had some shares that they'd got, and they were able to basically retire. They could stop working. They still did part-time work, but their full-time jobs they were able to retire from. And 20 years ago, there was a lot of people able to do that with your, what is it, final payment pension or something, when you actually got what your wages were, which seemingly there's not many of them left nowadays because companies just can't afford it. So there's a whole generation, my parents' age, who were able to retire early, were fit and healthy, and they were able to go and volunteer and help out in their communities. And they did. There was a lot of community stuff going on over the last few years. But what I'm thinking now is these people are now in their 70s, 80s, 90s. They're done. They're not capable of doing the same volunteering that they were able to do before. And the people my age, many of us still have mortgages. Many of us are still going to have to work for another 10 odd years till we're 67. Private pensions aren't as good, company pensions aren't as good. So we're going to have to work more. Now, when I first thought of this, I was thinking, well, why don't the youngsters volunteer? Why is it always the older ones that we see volunteering? And then I remembered that you're not supposed to volunteer if you're looking for work. You can get penalised for that if you do a regular voluntary slot. Or at least that certainly used to be the way it was. I don't know if it still is. Again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. So there's a lot of youngsters where it's not worth their while volunteering because they will get penalised. And by youngsters, I mean anyone under the age of 30, basically. There's also people under the age of 30 or under the age of 50 where over the last couple of years, there's been job losses, there's been mortgage payment increases, cost of living crisis. People are now running 2 and 3 jobs just to keep body and soul together. Now, you know that, and I know that. We've been talking about the cost of living crisis for over a year. And that's not even touching on the people like, Funky Prepper, Appalachia, things like people like that who have been here for many years in the States. And you've got Frugal Queen in France. She's been there for many years. They've been talking about this for a long time. And if they had seen this coming Why did the government not see it coming? Because basically, to me, certainly at the moment, it seems like the government's going, right, we'll cut costs here, we'll cut costs there, we'll get volunteers and, we'll ask the public, we'll say, right, who's going to volunteer to clear the snow off the paths? Well, it's not going to be me because I'm not going to get sued if someone slips. We want someone to cut the path, we'll get community groups to do it, we'll get community involvement, and the government or the local authority pays for these community involvement people to get people to do stuff that local authorities used to do. And you're like, see, if you'd done that 20 years ago, that would have been fantastic. You'd have had all these people who left their work early, were able to retire early, and were able to volunteer while they were still fit and healthy. The government's only just starting to do that now. They're 20 years too late. They've extended the pension age, they've increased mortgage rates, they've cut benefits, and they're still expecting us to do extra. So, what is expected here? I cannot believe the stupidity of the government to go, let's get more and more people involved in the community to do stuff that the government used to do, that our taxes used to pay for, when it's 20 years too late. These people are now too old to be starting this stuff, and the ones coming up can't afford to retire now. They're going to have to work till they drop. So yeah, that's my thought for today, is the speed of government is nowhere near keeping up with the speed of what's happening in the world. And don't even start me on technology, because the government doesn't have a clue. So there you go. So I'm going to go and have a cup of tea now and let you ruminate over my thoughts and let me know what you think. Because the way it's going, we're going to have a plan. Catch you later.